To any of that, we're going to go and talk about these D2 playoffs, man. And I guess we'll kind of mix in like the Week 11 results with the actual playoff pool as opposed to doing one at a time. So, I mean, without any further ado, I guess, man, here's the bracket. Let's just jump right into it, and you go the 4-1 seeds. You have Tiffin, Harding, School of Mines, and Benedict. Those are your 4-1 seeds.
I mean,
for the
I feel like
regions.
it seems like they're kind of no-brainers for...
They felt like layups, and... You know, what made it, I think, a lot easier in Super Region, I believe that's Super Region 1, is that Slippery Rock probably would have been the one in that region, I would say, but having that loss in the PSAC championship to Kutztown, that made the decision, I think, for the committee a lot easier. But no, I think the rest of the 1 seeds are kind of layups because even when you look at Super Region 3, right, which I think is probably the most stacked Super Region, Harding is... The only, I'm going down the list here. Yes, Harding, besides UND, is the only perfect team in this region. Grand Valley, Pittsburgh State, Ferris, Central Missouri, Henderson, they all have at least one blemish on their record. Harding does not, and has beaten Henderson State, so that gave them the obvious edge there. UND is perfect, but then you start talking about the strength of schedule being from the GLVC.
GLVC is not the strongest football.
No, and you know, I thought it was going to be that UND versus Truman game. That's always, at least the last couple of years, has kind of been the culmination in that conference. And Truman, as it stands, actually panned out just to not quite have the year that the Bulldogs expected.
It was still a decent year. It was definitely a down year for their standards.
Absolutely. They've been I
don't even remember what their record is. Their record finished.
Don't know off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
But I know it was definitely a down year a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But then you know, I guess we can talk about some of those squads that maybe didn't make the cut as you look here. I guess going through Super Region 1, for those of you who are listening, I'll try and hash it out here. From seed 1 to seed number 7, you've got Tiffin getting the bye. Then you've got a PSAC matchup in Slippery Rock hosting East Stroudsburg that played their way into the dance. The 2 seed, Charleston, in West Virginia, they've had quite the year coming out of the MEC. They will host New Haven. And then another PSAC team making the dance, that's Kutztown hosting Virginia Union from the CIAA, which could be an interesting matchup. Virginia Union took down Fayetteville State in the championship over there.
They only have probably one loss, right?
VU?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think they do, yeah.
They do. So they've had quite the year. Obviously, Jada Byers and that run game, that offensive line is going to be determining on how far they go. But that's Super Region 1. Super Region number 2 with Benedict being the top dog. You've got Lenore-Rhine hosting Shepherd, which Shepherd quietly has put together a fucking year.
I don't know if I've been saying, I said it on the podcast, but remember, I'm like, Shepherd's going to have a down year. It was like week 2. Was it like week 2 or something?
Everyone thought that.
I'm like, oh, they're for sure.
I should say everyone, but you were not the only. Yeah. Yeah. You certainly
I remember me and you talking about it, and look at them now.
There they are. Yeah.
There they are.
Lenore-Rhine hosts Shepherd. You've got Delta State with a huge rematch. They host West Florida. The Argonauts have to go back in and see if they can repeat against the Statesmen, who they did take down this year, if you remember correctly. And then Valdosta State comes in as the 3 seed after winning a portion of the Gulf South Championship. They split with Delta State because of some interesting tiebreakers and things. They will host Limestone, who was the last team in this Super Region. But for West Florida, Delta State, and Valdosta to make the dance here out of the Gulf South, I think is pretty incredible. The one thing I'm trying to think, because I was going to say only one SAC team, but Limestone gets the nod there. At the beginning of the year, certainly would have expected a team like Wingate to be that squad, and they showed spurts of that throughout the year, even beating Lenore-Rhine, being the one blemish on their record, but the consistency from the Bulldogs just wasn't there. I think especially offensively, they didn't quite have it. Hey, Tusculum, thanks for showing up in the SAC championship.
What was it?
It was ugly.
What was it?
I don't remember the actual final, but it was bad. It was I believe it was at Tusculum as well.
And it wasn't even...
Yeah, let me double check on that. I don't want to be talking out of my ass. But that was the SAC championship. And if we look here, they finished 6-4 after that game. The final was 48-7. Yeah.
Wow.
That's tough, man. That's tough. And Tusculum had quite a bit of momentum heading into that one. But Lenore-Rhine, I mean, obviously Benedict is still a great squad. Lenore-Rhine's offense, if they can be clicking on the way they have been for most of the season, they've made a ton of huge plays on special teams too.
I think that Super Region is the most like up in the, like top to bottom. You don't really know what's going to happen in that Super
I'd agree
region.
with that. I'd agree with that because we've seen already the parity in the Gulf South, right? We've seen Delta State, West Florida, and Valdosta State just beat the shit out of each other throughout the year, which feels good to have Valdosta State back in the dance after a 1-year hiatus last year.
Down year.
Yes, they call it Titletown down there. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
It's called Titletown in down there in Valdosta, Georgia. So very fitting for them to, not only to be back, but to host a playoff game. I know Coach Tremaine Jackson, we've had the pleasure of getting on the show, is going to be super pumped about that one. But this is going to be interesting. We can go back through and talk some picks, I guess, in a little bit. But moving forward to this third super region, and in my opinion, I still believe, and we could call us biased because we're GLIAC guys, but I think this is top to bottom the best region in the bracket here. And it all starts with Harding, the team that refuses to throw the football.
But I love it.
They love.
I always joke. I say they're my boys at Harding. Do I know a single Harding player? No, I don't. But I just love watching the way they play.
Dude, they're incredible.
It's so sweet.
That's like the best testament of a great football team is you know what you're getting yourself into. You know what you're gonna have to go against, and you still get your ass kicked.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
I love
it. Every
Every
team knows exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. Their defense, I don't think gets as quite as much credit as well because their offense has been putting up some pretty staggering numbers.
The reality of it is if you run like the flex bone and the triple option, you have to have an insane defense or a very good defense because you can't come back if you're losing, really.
That's absolutely correct.
You can't come back from a deficit when you have
absolutely
that type of offense.
Yeah, because there's no air raid to fall back on.
No, you have sustained drives. You want to have 7-8 minute drives. Like that's your goal with that offense.
A team quite opposite of that at the number 4 seed there, Central Missouri.
That would be so. If if Central Missouri wins, and then they play Harding
at Harding,
at Harding. Talk about opposite.
Yeah. Talk about like the number 1 offense in Division II right now, the Mules, man, with Zach Zabrowski, we had the pleasure of having on here just a little while back. He's been putting up video game numbers. The former Southern Illinois transfer who came in there, didn't even know he was going to be the starter at the beginning of the year, and then they had one of their quarterbacks go down. He steps in, and now he should be on the cover of the D2 Madden. If you're, it seems like he would be the Harlan Hill frontrunner. I don't believe that semifinalist list or anything has been released yet for the actual finalists for the awards. You can expect that guy to be on that. He's led that Central Missouri team to some great success. Their only loss on the year being at Pittsburgh State, who they lost by like 3 points or something crazy. They ran through a really stacked MIAA conference through teams like, Fort Hays State has put together a decent year. Emporia State, Nebraska Kearney, Northwest, who is not in the dance, you'll notice. And they were not even really the first team out either. With 4 losses on the year, the next MIAA team would have been Missouri Western, who had all the chance in the world to be on this graphic, dude. They lose in overtime to Missouri Southern this week. We're not going to call it the D1R curse.
We're not going to call it that. But there might be a slight truth to it.
Oh, that hurts, man. It hurts because I really enjoyed the conversation we had with Jonas on here. But man, that Central Missouri team is going to be a lot of fun to watch. They will host Henderson State in Super Region number 3, which is a great matchup. Obviously, most of these are. Let's get down to the next one, though. Grand Valley State, the 2 seed, they'll host Ferris State, who I believe was the 6 in this matchup. I will never understand why this can happen. And
that's what I was just going to get at.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous.
Dude, it's awful. And
especially if the NCAA was smart, you would not have that game as a first game.
Man, no.
You want to make more money? Yes. Have it be a second or third game. Like, I get it. Yeah, maybe they're supposed to align, but change it. I don't care.
Damn it,
if you want to be smart here, make more money.
At this point, you're the game maker. This is the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
All right? There's no fucking rules. You can go put the toxic fog in one corner or strike lightning on the clock. You know how they do that shit? You need to pull some shit out here and make this not happen in the first round because this is ridiculous. It's going to be a fantastic football game.
And you shouldn't just have a rivalry the first week of the playoff. I just think it's stupid.
I was talking with our athletic director, Rick Comley, here at Northern Michigan earlier today because we had earlier tonight we had this watch party for women's soccer, and he said that one of the rules hockey-wise is that you cannot play someone in your own conference in the first round.
That should be a rule for every sport.
That. Yeah. I love that. I mean, the best example I think I can use, too, you talk about the FCS scene, where I've talked about this before on the show, but the fact that North Dakota State and South Dakota State can play for a championship at the FCS level, and they're both in the Missouri Valley. They're the 2 best teams in the country.
Yeah.
Why the hell should they play in the first round? I'm not saying these 2 are the 2 best teams in the country, but damn it, it's close.
Yeah.
It's close.
I would bet good money that if Ferris played anyone else, or if if they don't play each other, they're both winning their first game.
Yeah. So, I mean, this would be a matchup. Obviously, you'd love to see in like a quarter or semifinal.
Yeah,
even,
exactly.
But,
it's and it doesn't ever happen.
I don't love it. And that's what, even looking at the other side in Super Region 1, Slippery Rock and East Stroudsburg. Like, come on, man. Like, at least give us Kutztown and Virginia Union. That's a matchup. That's an interesting matchup. Two teams that don't know much about each other.
There's a Gulf South one too, isn't there?
Yeah, Delta State, West Florida.
Yeah, those are
rematch.
rivalries too. Yeah.
I don't.
I think you got to find a way to not do that.
No, I don't understand.
Or at least limit it as much as possible.
Yeah. So I'm not a fan of it. What I am a fan of is that game's going to be electric. I think that's
it's going to be awesome.
Ridiculous. I mean, it's a rematch. It's literally a rematch from last year, and Ferris came out on top in the playoffs. Grand Valley, I mean, I think you can both attest to it. This Grand Valley team is better than last year, I think by a large amount.
100%. They're more deep. Like, it doesn't feel like there's any weak points on that team.
Their depth is incredible, and I think that's something that's going to carry them a long way. That being said, there are some other great teams that have all those same features, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, something that's interesting to me, and, man, I got to clear it up there a second, but when you talk about in the past, I think a great example, you talk about this GLIAC or NSIC kind of like Big Ten-y football, right, where it's ground and pound, especially when you get into November and December, you're playing these meaningful games. I remember Tyson Bagent and Shepherd having to come up and play at Ferris State in like the quarterfinal or semifinal or whatever it was, right? And Ferris dominated because their offense, their air raid style offense, you know what I mean? Like, they weren't running the ball extremely well. They weren't very physical in the trenches, but they were very talented. Ferris just had their way with them.
Or I remember it was 2 years ago, Ferris and Grand Valley played in the playoffs, and it was a snowstorm.
Yes.
And I remember that year Grand Valley threw the ball a lot more than on a typical year that they do. They just they threw the ball a lot. And Ferris, they don't have to throw the ball. They can go a whole game like Harding. They wanted to. They could go a whole game without throwing the ball and be totally fine.
And that's what intrigues me about this pool, and that's where I kind of wanted to go with that, is that, out of your region, you have a team like Harding that it does not matter where the fuck that team plays. They're going to show up. They're going to run their shit. Their defense travels. Their rushing attack travels.
Yeah.
Those boys are ready to play wherever, whenever. Even you look on the other side of the bracket, who comes out of this Super Region 1? Is it a team like Tiffin? Is it a team like Slippery Rock?
I also feel like that's the weakest of the Super Regions.
It could be.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I can see it. I see
just like top to bottom. Yes, there's some very good teams on there too.
Yeah,
but I think top to bottom, it's not as strong as
before we give the big picture, let's finish out kind of the spots over here.
We haven't even got to the last one. I know
Pittsburgh State and UIndy. This to me might be one of the more one-sided matchups. I see Pitt State handling UIndy, and I might be thrown in an edit after the game goes the other way. I don't think it's gonna happen.
We've seen it before with UIndy. Like, they play in the GLVC, and once they play. I just remember regular season last year, UIndy went to Saginaw, who wasn't even a playoff team last year, Saginaw Valley.
And they were like the number, 7 team in the country at that point or something?
Yeah, and got their ass kicked.
Yeah.
So I just think, and it's something against UIndy, they just don't play against that competition.
Yeah. And for me, I think a big part of it, too, is when you look at their out-of-conference schedule this year, Trev, they go through GLVC play, and their closest game... is this the right? Yeah, this is the right year. Okay, I thought I had the wrong year pulled up because they do have they have the one loss to McKendree.
I remember that game.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I forgot about that earlier because I said no. So there's no team in this part of the in this region besides Harding that has a perfect record. So you have the one loss to McKendree in the conference. Their out of conference schedule. That's where you start to stack up, and we were kind of ripping on them right there, but for not scheduling out of conference. Hillsdale, Wayne State, and Saginaw Valley.
And Saginaw had a down year compared to most years.
Wayne State, brand new head coach, and credit to them, they put together something decent. But that Wayne State team in Michigan,
they're a rebuild.
They're a true rebuild, and there's some great building blocks for them. But Trevor, the stat that I saw in their game day program, there was one player on that roster that had 3 prior varsity letters with the Warriors heading into this season.
Exactly. They're a young team.
That's crazy.
It's just not it's not a great look for UIndy.
It's not a discredit to Wayne State or Sag or Hillsdale. No. It's just if you're UIndy and you know you're a team that's going to be on top of your conference and potentially win the GLVC,
some bigger schools.
You need to do that. Team that did a great job of that, Trev, number 1 in Super Region number 4, Colorado School of Mines. You look at their record, they open up with potentially an early candidate for Game of the Year against Grand Valley, winning on that last-second field goal. Then they go and play Angelo State, who at the time was a top 5 team in the country, had their way with Angelo State. And then you get into some more quality wins for them. Western Colorado, the 2 seed, that comes up. They dominated the Mountaineers in a way that not a lot of people expected. Yeah. And then you have wins, obviously, like CSU Pueblo and some of those things that you mix in there in the RMAC. But
CSU Pueblo was good this year, too. I mean, they got snubbed. They didn't get snubbed. I feel like they had a couple more losses than I thought.
They kind of trailed off at the end of the year. I'd actually be interested to see. I don't remember what their final...
well, I know they lost to Western Colorado. They lost to School of the Mines. They lost to Grand Valley.
Yes.
And I'm going to guess they might have had one more loss.
That's it, actually. They finished 8-3. Yep.
That's crazy to me, too, sometimes. You play 3 playoff teams.
Yeah. That's
it. Three.
So yeah, CSU Pueblo.
2 of them are 2 seeds. One's a 1 seed.
You finish 8-3, man, and those are your 3 losses. But that's not enough.
That's the risk. You look at UIndy.
Yes.
Then there's the caveat to it.
Yes.
You play those tough teams, and you lose in the beginning of the year.
Because now we're looking at, though, a CSU Pueblo team that took Grand Valley State to 2 overtimes. Say you pull off that win.
Away.
Some hypothetical.
They were at Grand Valley, too.
And now you go through, by the way, their 3-week stretch there was at GV and that at home versus Western Colorado and home versus Mines in a 3-week span.
Yeah.
That was tough. They started 1-4 and they finished 8-3.
Yeah.
With a new coach over there, Coach Vigil. And that's a credit to his
the caveat to it, because you could play the best, and if you lose a couple games, you're out.
But just saying in that hypothetical, if you win that Grand Valley game, like I said, that went into 2 overtimes, but you still lose, say in this hypothetical, you lose to Western, you lose to Mines.
You're still in.
Now you're looking at a 9-2 team that's beat Grand Valley, you're in the dance. And that's a way you schedule and you go about that. If you're UIndy, you have to kind of think like that. But then again, who are we to say they still made it in? Now, there's some other kind of factors that played into that, of course. But this Mines team, man, 11-0, regarded as the best team in the country for a very good reason. They open with those 2 games against number 3 and number 4. They roll through RMAC play. And when I say roll, I mean roll. Their game against Western Colorado was a 42-7 win.
Yeah, and it's not like these teams are bad in the RMAC this year. No, they're not playing a bunch of terrible teams.
Absolutely not. No, I mean, you talk about Western Colorado, CSU Pueblo, South Dakota Mines was a squad that put some solid games together. There's certainly competition there, but
and it didn't look like competition with them, though.
No. And then we talk about the conference rematches as well. Augustana and Minnesota State. What are we doing?
I mean, at least they're not like rivals.
Yeah,
at least
Augustana has already beaten them on the year, so that's going to make it interesting.
At least it's not Bemidji and Minnesota State, we'll talk about Duluth in a second.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about that in a second. But you have Augustana, the 4 seed, hosting the Mavericks from Mankato. You got Western Colorado hosting Central Washington, and then you have UTPB and Bemidji State. I'm excited for that. That's a fun
Bemidji
that's a fun
has
matchup.
To travel to Texas.
Yes, that is a very fun matchup for me. I think this UTPB team is going to surprise a lot of people. I have them making it a couple rounds, at least in my whatever internal bracket in my brain. They talked with their coach. Obviously, really enjoyed him, but that team has done a lot. And Kenny Hirschner, I believe, hopefully I'm not butchering that name, and that offense have done some serious work for the Falcons down there with a very young program too. It's actually really exciting. But I wanted to check and look at Western Colorado and their schedule, because had they played No, they had not. Okay. Because that was UTPB's only loss on the regular season, if you do remember, is to Western Colorado, who beat them by 8 points. So really solid contest. That was at Western, at Colorado.
Yeah.
So that's UTPB's only loss heading into this one. And Central Washington, a squad that just got beat relatively handily by UTPB in the conference championship. They still find a way to get in there.
Is that their only loss?
I can double check on that right now. But if you want to talk snubs, dude, we could talk about Duluth a little bit.
NCAA, it would have made a lot more sense if you put the records of the teams on your graphic.
So I remember this now that after I've pulled it up. Central Washington has 3 losses. Only one of them is to a Division II squad. They played at number 10 FCS Weber State. So you're like, okay, cut them a little slack. A 35-10 game, nothing crazy. But then they lose at home to Montana Tech. What? The NAIA team that we were just talking about. And they're still in the dance. And there were a lot of people outraged over this. And I just remembered, after pulling it up, I just remembered all that. So you can certainly imagine when a team like this gets in with a 7-3 record and you've got Minnesota Duluth from the outside looking in.
That's ridiculous.
Certainly going to raise some questions.
And we played week 1 against Minnesota Duluth. They were, without a doubt, a playoff team.
Oh, yeah. And they found their stride, man. That offense with Wall Jasper.
You
couldn't find a defensive player in the NSIC that was willing to just go and lay his body out on that guy, man. Holy
Their
cow.
offense, both sides of the ball, they were good, too.
Yes.
Offense and defense, they're just...
It felt like a playoff team.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
Duluth felt like a playoff team. And if we look at their schedule here, you just talked about how Central Washington had 3 losses. This Duluth team's 9-2, man. And those 2 losses, you have one to Wayne State, which really hurt them at Wayne. And then the other one, a 7-point loss at home against Bemidji. And that was really the kicker. But they didn't have a chance to play Augustana this year, which is huge because Augustana obviously went to outright win the conference. But they did just close this last week by beating Mankato. And that's really what hurts, obviously, the relevancy, the recency bias. Seeing Mankato to get in here as a relatively high seed as well. When you talk about, I know it's an at-large, whatever, but like they're all at-large. But seeing them get in
just ridiculous.
right after you beat them
Central Washington, they lost to an NAIA school and they still got in.
Yes.
And I'm not bashing NAIA, but
yeah,
realistically, D2 is a higher level than NAIA most of the time.
Yeah, and that for a playoff team at both levels shouldn't happen.
No,
you're going to see upsets from D3 teams beating NAIA teams, D3 teams beating D2 teams, and vice versa, all that stuff.
But it's not a top 25 D2 team and a top 25 NAIA team and the NAIA team winning.
That shouldn't happen.
It's a D3 team that's at
really
the top and a bottom D2. We have a little experience.
We might have seen that before.
We might. I might have been a part of a game. Hypothetically, I don't remember. Pretend I don't remember.
Yeah. No.
But like that shouldn't happen. A playoff team should never lose to NAIA school.
A part of looking at this part of the bracket in Super Region 4, half of the teams playing first round games are coming in off a loss.
Wow. That's
not the way you want to enter the playoffs, right?
That is crazy.
You put Mankato on there, Central Washington, and who's Bemidji, because they got beat by Augustana. So there's 3 of your 6 teams that are in that first week. Obviously, Mines gets a bye, being the 1 seed in the region.
I can't believe
3 of the 6 are coming in off a loss.
I didn't know
That's
that
not the
about
way you
Central Washington, that they lost to Montana Tech, who is a great squad. We know is a good football team, but wow. Yep. And Duluth gets snubbed.
Yeah. Wayne Cavati's got a Mines GVSU final, by the way. I just took a peep at his kind of bracket write up, which we can talk about that in a second. We can talk about final.
Did he do this before the bracket was?
He must have, because that is obviously not going to how it's going to work out. But he must have done it beforehand. Yeah, I'm looking at it. But
I would hope so.
Yeah, because if you look on here, obviously they would.
They can do it. They can have a semifinal.
They would meet in the semis. No. Yes, but 11-13, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it panned out that way. Actually, yeah. But yeah, other snubs. I mean, Davenport, I know a lot of people were upset over that. Let's talk about the region, right? Let's talk about the region. Look at Super Region 3. Like we said, this is probably the toughest region out of all of them to make a crack at it. And when you look at the teams towards the bottom of that list, Henderson State, right? And I'll pull up their schedule right here. But they just beat Ouachita, who they bounced from the playoffs in that game, right? And that's a team that I believe only has 1 loss in the season to the 1 seed in Harding.
Yeah.
Out of the GAC, and I would be wrong. They have 2 losses. Thanks, Kobe. Their other loss was Southern Arkansas. That's correct. Their homecoming game. That was a 1-point loss for them. So a 2-loss Henderson State team, but they finish out the year, excuse me, at the number 10 team in the country and pull out a win in a big rivalry game.
That's what I was just going to mention.
Yes.
What, how do you word it?
Davenport doesn't have a statement win.
Statement win. That's what I'm.
They don't have one.
They don't have one.
They have a lot of decent, quality wins. They don't have a statement win.
And that's people might want to argue, well, Davenport got in last year and they had 2 losses. But remember, they also beat Truman State.
They beat Truman again this year. But Truman didn't have the same
But they
year.
weren't as good. But last year, Truman was still a good squad.
Yeah.
And I think they had another big win.
So this year, they're out of conference. Thomas More, a first-year Division II program. Bowie State, who I I'll have to check on their record and see how they finished, to be honest. But I don't believe extremely respectable.
Didn't they play William Jewell as well?
Yes.
Who's not
very
good.
Yeah. So if you're Davenport, again, looking at the schedule, and of course, as Davenport, you're not going to go into the year Sparky McEwen and say, oh, we're going to lose to Ferris and Grand Valley. You would never say that in a million years.
No.
But at the end of the day, it's a possibility because you're a realist. And so that's why you go out and schedule these kind of games. Bowie State finished 6-4, so a decent year for them for sure, but nothing. Still not a statement win, right? And for Davenport, when you get into those games against the ranked opponents, gave Ferris a fight. We're up at halftime. After the second half, the wheels fell off, and Ferris goes ahead and scores 21 unanswered and beats you at your place, by the way. That was at home. You go into Grand Valley, and I think it was kind of the nail in the coffin, 38-zip. Lay a goose egg in Allendale.
And something else to mention, too, is they had a lot of very close games, like against lesser opponents.
Yep.
Like, it felt like Davenport the whole year kind of played to their opponent's skill.
They were much better than last year, I will say. Last year, we saw a lot of times where Davenport had to go down in the fourth quarter and make up some kind of miracle play. Like a Wayne State last year kind of comes to mind, whereas I think this year they took a step. We're talking about some of the margins of victory. They open up conference play 28-0 at Michigan Tech. You remember that one?
Oh, yeah, that was an impressive win.
That was a very impressive win for them. They beat us by
2 touchdowns.
Yeah, only 2 scores. Not anything crazy, to be honest. But then you go to Wayne State, and you beat them 32-3. Again, a rebuilding team, but still a decent football team.
No, they were still a decent squad.
But then you talk, again, here you go. You talk about University of Mary. They only beat them by 10 points. That's not a squad. It's a squad. That's a squad you got to go in there and show them what you're about. Saginaw Valley, they win by 3 points. Not exactly the momentum you want heading into the gauntlet that is the end of the year for you in number 7 Ferris State and number 2 GVSU.
Yeah.
So I get it.
I'm still surprised they laid a goose egg against Grand Valley. Like,
yeah, that's bad.
Yeah,
that's really bad. And that might be. Yeah, at the end of the day, wins and losses are super important. But how did you win? How did you lose?
Yeah,
right. They're looking at that. That's all criteria. Yeah. Strength of schedule is all criteria, and that's technically, I believe, is the reason why Duluth isn't in. If I'm not the one who makes the decisions, but excuse me, I was reading because you have that weird split in the NSIC. Where, okay, Augustana beat Mankato, and then you had Mankato beat Bemidji, and then, like, Duluth beat Mankato. There's, like, this weird, like, kind of go around.
They're all beating each other and losing each other. I feel like that's how it is in the NSIC every year, though.
Yeah, they cannibalize themselves a little bit. And Augustana's only loss came at the hands of Wayne State. If you remember, just a couple weeks ago, it was that snow game, that 14-12. Yeah. So they do have one loss in the year, but they were obviously the top seed coming out of it. They win the championship.
I just can't put my head around it still, how Duluth didn't get in. And
yeah, it's tough.
Central Washington.
Because the Central Washington thing's tough.
That just makes me tough. It makes me a little mad. Like,
if you're a Bulldog, yeah, you're pissed, dude.
Yeah.
You're pissed. Oh. But yeah, I don't know of any other.
It doesn't make sense. Like
I'm trying to think.
I get strength of schedule and this and that, but
yeah, but it's kind of tough to swallow.
Yeah.
I wanted to look back. If we look back on the regional rankings for Division II and to see kind of what other teams potentially may have at least had a chance at getting in here. Southern Arkansas. I mean, they're kind of in the same boat as Davenport, and they had a couple losses in the GAC. And they just needed that other one more statement win. But the win they do have is against Henderson State, which, barring that Ouachita Baptist win, then they might have actually had a chance there. But they were probably, them or Davenport would have been the first other team to get in Super Region 3. Yeah. Then you go down, Angelo State, probably the first team out in Super Region number 4. You look at their losses. That was against UTPB. It was against, I think, Central Washington beat them in Mines. So, when you lose the 2 of the teams ahead of you, that's just not that's not a recipe to making it into the dance. Texas A&M Kingsville, I don't think really had that good of a shot. And then Wayne State, I think Duluth would probably be the team to get in over them, even though then you get into Wayne State beat them. I don't know.
The NSIC just messes everything up. They all beat each other and then lose to each other, and
they do, man. It's very interesting. The whole deal. But was reading kind of Wayne's notes here and Just had some other like little upset notes, like a Virginia Union over Kutztown upset, which if that Kutztown defense continues to play at the clip that they're playing at, I don't see that happening. He says the team to beat in Super Region 1 is Slippery Rock, which I would actually agree with it. I would agree with that.
And then you go to Tiffin, too.
Yeah.
Think about their strength of schedule.
Yeah.
I know they've dominated.
They're undefeated, too. So that's
They're
why.
undefeated.
Yep.
But
Slippery Rock, if they won the PSAC championship, which they got killed, by the way.
Yeah.
If they had won that, they would have been the one.
Yeah.
I think, for sure.
Because the GMAC isn't
no.
the strongest conference.
Team to beat in Region 2, he says, is West Florida, which is kind of an interesting pick because they've kind of been up and down this year, right? They've been inconsistent.
It's been their offense, hasn't it?
Their defense, I think, has been a lot more steady on that side of the ball. Their offense has been very good and has also been very mid at certain times throughout the season. We're looking for them to be playing their best ball here heading into the playoffs because ain't no other time to do that, right? Otherwise, I mean, I don't think anything too crazy I see going on. Do you have a finals matchup in mind looking at this thing right here?
I could see.
I do think a Mines GV semifinal is very realistic.
I think it'll be Mines and I'm gonna say that side I don't know.
It's tough. It actually is. This region especially. I know Benedict, to me, feels like they're kind of away from the rest of the scene being in their conference, and I just don't. But they're very good, is the thing.
Yeah.
I haven't seen enough of them because I think
it'll be Mines and Delta State.
You think so?
I think if Delta State beats West Florida, they're going to be on a roll.
I take the winner of this one right here. You can't see my mouse on the recording, but Delta State West Florida is going to be a very.
I don't think anyone up in the is that
Super Region 1.
Yeah,
I think Slippery Rock makes a run here. I think what they've been able to do offensively, with an asterisk next to that PSAC championship game, what they've been able to do offensively is very impressive. They're throwing the ball to a man-child over there, and Kyle Sheets on the outside. Their run game has been good when they need it to be, right? Their quarterback play has been solid. I think Slippery Rocks, I would agree, is the team to beat in that super region. With that being said, this Charleston team, I think, has a lot of question marks around it. As a team to watch, for sure, for me. I haven't
even heard much about them this year.
You know, they've had some quality wins over teams. I'll double-check here before I start, again, speaking out of my ass. But against teams like Fairmont and Frostburg State, right? Yeah. Those kind of squads that were fringe playoff teams, right? So they're 9-1. Their only loss coming to Fairmont State. So take that back. They didn't beat Fairmont. They did beat Frostburg the following week. And then, you know, the rest of their schedule nothing really stands out. They had a win over Gannon and a win over UNC Pembroke. Those are decent wins. But that Mountain East as a whole, top to bottom, nothing too special. The Frostburg and Fairmonts of the world. Outside of that, there's not really much else there. But I don't see them having any problem with University of New Haven. We'll see what's going on there. Siobhan Wright leading the backfield there. We talked about him a little bit on this particular program. But that's about it, man. I guess as a final note, all contests shall start at 1 p.m. local time. All these games. Kind of cool.
Well, that is...
But also means no night games or anything, which is kind of,
yeah.
Yeah, but I guess they just want it to be level the playing field, huh? But all contests at 1 a.m. Other times may be established if approved at 1 p.m. Other times may be established if approved by the committee. The championship game will be played December 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time at McKinney ISD Stadium in McKinney, Texas, and will be broadcast live on ESPNU HD. Just in case, not to be confused with the other definition.
I'm pretty sure it'd be on both of them. But.
No, it said ESPNU HD. It's just ESPN. Why do you
Isn't that just ESPN?
Yeah, why do you put HD on there?
Isn't it all HD now?
Yeah, dude. Who's not broadcasting in HD? What are we doing? Ugh. All right, Trev. Thanks, dude. That was that's all the D2 side of things. Let's head over to the Division 3 bracket with Jimmy Martin.